Pardon me, I'd be excused.
You were previously sworn, so you're still under oath, okay, you understand that?
Mhm. Your Honor, should I proceed? She was in the cross when we left off.
Yes, so, Jim.
Okay.
Judge, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the record keepers of Lord Chamberlain, Heart Specialist, Bridgeport Hospital, and St. Vincent's Hospital have all produced records in response to a subpoena that I gave to the record keepers due to a problem that we had, for whatever reason, in terms of stipulating to the exhibits as previously agreed on. I have the records here. I'd be happy to submit them to the court at the court's convenience.
Well, are you guys gonna look at them and agree on what you're gonna allow in? And
Well,
what am I gonna do with them if I start looking at them until they're used somewhere in the trial?
Well, I believe they're admissible as to whether or not this gentleman was in a position to have influence exerted over him, and that's the purpose of the offer.
Well, you're just gonna submit them in bulk, is that what you're planning to do?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I object, Your Honor.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, I did try and go through them in my examination of Dr. Neiditz, and to a large extent I did. Obviously, we don't have the money to call an expert from each single hospital, but we believe his medical records are important in terms of determining the frailty of this individual.
Well, that may be so, but I tell you, I am not gonna plow through those medical records. If you guys wanna plow through them and, underline or outline, put yellow markers on what you want me to look at, fine. But I'm not gonna plow through those guys without any guidance, I'm gonna tell you that right now. It's just not gonna happen. So we can make copies, and you can each, use a different color pen or whatever you want, and then give them to them.
Okay, I agree with that, Your Honor.
Okay?
Well, if that's the only choice I have, that's the only choice I
Yeah,
have.
well, like I said, the court's just not gonna plow through it. If you haven't reviewed them, I'm sure not gonna do it for you. So you guys are gonna have to review it and let me know what you want me to consider,
Yeah.
okay?
I have a general objection because they're too far away from the date of the test.
Well, you can, I'm gonna have you brief after we're over, so that stuff you can raise in all your briefs, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, so we're gonna
Just pass
continue
it back
with,
so that I don't.
with Ms. Diva's testimony.
Good morning, Ms. VACK.
Good morning.
How are you?
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, no, I fell at work.
Okay. Excuse me. Do you mind if I call you Kathy?
That's fine.
Thank you. When we talked to you on the last day that we were here, we were talking about your arrest on April 17th.
It was not like out of court.
I know that it was knowledge, but you also testified that you never struck your dad.
No.
And why were you arrested?
Because I was there on April 7th and April 18th. I couldn't get into my father's home. I called the police and allegations were made against me.
Allegations were made by your dad.
Not to my knowledge. I don't remember who made the allegations, but
Did you have an opportunity to go to court?
yes.
Where was that?
Where?
Yeah.
Bridgeport.
And how many times did you go to court?
Objection, Your Honor,
Yeah,
this is
that's-
irrelevant.
that's
How many
nothing to do-
times when I make an objection, stop. Judge, I have an objection based upon this line of question as being irrelevant as to why she went to court, when she went to court. None of this has any
It's the
bearing.
same.
Okay.
Good.
You were arrested for striking your dad.
Objection, Your Honor.
That's really-
Excuse me. I have an objection. This is not probative. It's not a conviction. She should not be allowed to inquire.
If it relates to her treatment of her father-in-law,
Thank you. You were arrested for striking your dad. You were charged with assault, correct?
Yes.
And when you got to court, a restraining order was issued against you.
Yes.
And in fact, the day that you were calling, you called the police on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the reason that you called the police?
Because Miss Reed wouldn't let me talk to my father and I just got back from Florida.
And you had already been at your father's house that same day.
No,
Is that correct?
I haven't seen my father since April 7th.
You hadn't seen your father since April 7th?
Yes, ma'am.
So what date were you charged with assaulting him?
April 21st?
Could you be mistaken?
No, April 18th I called the police, and April 21st I got the call to turn myself in.
If I were to tell you that the police report is April 17th, would that refresh in your recollection?
No, it was the 18th.
Well, the police report is on April 17th.
Objection.
Was it on a,
What's the objection?
It's not a question.
okay. On April 17th, the police report says that which was a Saturday. Do you recall whether or not it was on a Saturday?
And I returned from Florida late Friday, so it was Sunday, because I was having carpet installed.
It was what?
I was having carpet installed, it was on the 18th.
Okay. So you had seen your father the day before?
No, I seen my father on April 7th. Was the last time I seen my father. My son and I were both there.
Okay. And you called the police and you ended up being arrested.
Yes.
And you talked to the police that day also, didn't you?
Yes.
And the police officer told you that you were not to call your dad again?
Objection, hearsay.
No, it's in the police report. The police officer told you that.
What the police officer told her is hearsay.
Ask her, straight up.
What did the police officer tell you?
Not to contact my father at this time.
And did the police officer tell you why?
They're investigating an assault.
And you were the one that were being investigated,
Yes.
okay? And when you went to court, it was for assaulting your dad.
I said that yes.
Okay. I know that you said you have never assaulted your father.
Never.
How old was your dad?
88.
And his medical conditions were that?
He had a pacemaker, he had a catheter, he was frail, and on medications.
I'm gonna show you a picture. Is this your dad?
Yeah.
I know you said you've never assaulted him. How did you get that bruise on his
He
arm?
bruised all the time, he was on medication.
So it's your testimony that he bruised himself?
He always bruised.
He always bruised, and he
For
bruised
years.
himself on his arm?
The wind blew, he bruised. I never touched my father.
All right, that's your testimony.
Yes, it is.
I want to remind you that you're under oath,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And you're saying that the case was nollied?
Yes, ma'am.
Why was it nollied?
Because insufficient evidence.
Who told you that?
That's what I was told.
Who told you that?
Judge, I'm going to object as far as what she was told about why her case was nollied. This is more.
If she knows, she could testify. I don't see it.
Insufficient evidence, that's all I know.
What date was that?
Oh gosh, I don't remember the exact date offhand.
It was after your father passed away.
Yes.
Isn't it true that your case was nollied because your father died?
No, not to my knowledge. The only thing I thought was because I was insufficient evidence, that's all I knew.
The week before that you saw your father, is that the week that you took him to the basement?
I never took my father to the basement.
You never took your father to the basement to talk to him?
No. He didn't
You
put up
knew-
downstairs well.
You knew that your father had changed his will?
No.
Your father never discussed that with you?
No, last I saw my father was April 7th, and I was still, as far as I knew, the will executor at that time.
As far as you know what?
I was the will executor, the one with the will, on April 7th. I've never seen my father since then.
Your father used to allow you to sign checks for him. Is that
With
correct?
him there,
Excuse me?
with him. He was always with me at that time.
He was always with you when you signed checks
Whenever
for
I was
him?
with him, he or I signed right there.
And there came a point in time that he didn't allow you to do that anymore?
No, when I left for Florida, I was still on his bank account. It still said Kathy on the checks. My name was present on all checks.
And when was the last time that you wrote any checks on your father's account?
It was just after I got back from Florida, I had a bill in the mail, and I went to pay it, and it came back insufficient funds, account closed. And that's why I found out something was going on.
And so did you have a conversation with your dad?
No, I was unable to speak with him.
But you had your son try to call him?
Oh, if my son called, I don't know. My
Now,
children.
when you left to go to Florida, you left in a rage, in an
No.
argument with your father.
No, I left on April 10th to go to Florida, saw my father April 7th.
Okay, but prior to leaving to go to Florida, you and your father had an altercation.
Oh, I asked him to be power of attorney because of his age. He said, okay. And then Ms. Reed walked in the room, said, Mr. D, they'll put you in a convalescent home, and that's where your wife died. And he raged out. And I said, Dad, listen, I don't want to speak to you in this song. I'm tired. I'm leaving for Florida. I'll speak to you when I come back.
Isn't
So
it
that's
true that your father said he did not want you to be his power of attorney?
No, he literally said he wanted me to.
So why didn't he do it?
Because Ms. Reed said I would put him in a home.
You're the one that said that he should go to a home.
I never said
in
that. He
November.
was in a home. I took him out of a home. Why would I put him
You
back?
told the police in November, you testified to that earlier, that he should go into a home because you couldn't take care of him anymore.
No, I told him I was getting help to come into the house because I could not put him in a home.
You could not put him in a home,
I took him out of a home. Why would I put him back?
but you also told the police in November of '09 that you couldn't do it anymore.
Exactly, and that's
You
why I was getting
also
help.
testified that you're a CNA,
Yes,
but yet you refused to help your father on the date of November 28, 2009, when he had to call the police because you refused to answer him.
no, because I refused to open the door. I was having an argument with my ex-girlfriend at the time.
And so even though your father is elderly, even though your father is frail, even though your father has a wealth of medical conditions, your girlfriend's relationship was far more important to you.
No, because I had explained to him I was in the middle of an argument, and I needed to have some time alone to please just let me calm down.
You
He
didn't
said, okay.
explain anything to your father.
Yes, I did. You weren't
refused
there.
to answer the door.
I told him I wasn't answering the door. I was
Please.
crying.
Ask
is
and
a
answer questions, let's not get argumentative, okay?
Well, I did answer the question, Your Honor. I turned around and told
Kathy,
him.
don't argue with the judge.
Oh.
The police came, and that's when you opened the door.
Yes, and the police told my father I had every right to be in that room alone to get my tears out.
Excuse me?
The police told my father I had every right to be in that room alone to get my frustration out.
That's what the police said?
Yes.
Is that in the police report?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what they wrote. I
And,
never got a copy.
Your Honor, are the exhibits available?
Yeah, yeah. Right, yeah. I think we all were in the last time, we're all marked down and blind.
Okay, thank you. Can I flip them, Your Honor?
Sure. I think that's all of them. Well, wait a minute, here's a police report here.
November 28th?
Yeah, that's it. It's marked, but I must have all in the file.
All right, thank you.
Actually, on that incident, I ended up in the hospital that night also.
There's no question pending, so Your Honor, if that could be stricken from the record. Your Honor,
Okay, I didn't
Okay.
write anything down,
thank
I
you.
didn't hear.
You told the police you can't do it anymore.
I was visibly upset.
And you no longer want to live there,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the
Objection,
police
is there a question
advise
pending?
you, excuse me?
I don't hear a question. I hear a whole lot of statements, but I don't hear a question.
They're just trying to refresh it.
If you see, also the police stated
Report.
to put him in convalescent home. I never said it.
So at that point,